My family treated me like their ATM for years while my sister got everything. But after they disrespected me at Thanksgiving dinner, I started something I call the $500 rule. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Story Zone. Hit that subscribe button right now because this one is going to make you feel things. This is not a loud story. There is no screaming, no dramatic confrontation, no moment where someone throws something across a room. This is a story about the quiet version of family injustice, the kind that happens slowly over years, that gets normalized so completely that by the time you are an adult you have stopped noticing how strange it is. And it is a story about what happens when the person your family treated as the responsible one, the useful one, the one whose job was to handle things, turns out to have been handling things at a scale nobody knew about. My name is Rachel. I am 34 years old. And this is the story of the last Thanksgiving my family will remember for a very long time. I want to start at the beginning because the beginning is important. Not because it is dramatic, it is not. The beginning of this story is very ordinary, which is part of what makes it what it is. I grew up in a family with one sister, Amber, who is 3 years older than me. From as far back as I can remember, the family operated on a clear and unspoken hierarchy. Amber was the golden child, pretty in the way that made strangers compliment my parents, charming in the way that made rooms orient toward her, social in the way that generated the kind of stories parents tell at dinner parties. She was the daughter they bragged about. She was the daughter people asked about first. I was the other one, the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who got good grades without anyone making much of a fuss about it because good grades were simply what was expected of me. Whereas Amber bringing home a B was met with encouragement and understanding about how hard she was trying. I was the one who handled things, logistics, planning, the practical dimensions of family life that needed managing and that nobody particularly wanted to be thanked for managing. It was not a role I chose. It was a role I was placed in early enough that I do not remember a time before it. The favoritism was structural. That is the word I would use looking back, not occasional, not subtle, structural. Amber's college was funded in full. 4 years at a private university, tuition, housing, everything, roughly $200,000 over the course of her degree. I received nothing. I worked 2 jobs through most of my own degree and took out loans that I spent years paying back. And this was understood by everyone in the family as simply how things were because I was the capable one, the one who could handle it, and Amber needed the support. When Amber turned 16, she received a car. An actual car, bought for her, hers, something to drive to school and to her friends' houses. When I turned 18, I was told that I would be paying rent if I wanted to continue living in my parents' house. Not a conversation, not a negotiation, a statement. The number was not large, but that was not the point. The point was the architecture of it. My sister lived in that house for free until she was 23. I paid to be there from the day I was legally an adult. I want to be clear about something. I am not telling you this to generate sympathy. I am telling you this because it is the context without which nothing that follows makes complete sense. These were not random decisions. They were a consistent, years-long pattern that communicated something very specific. In this family, there are 2 daughters and they are not the same. After I finished my degree, I built a career. I worked hard in the specific, heads-down, no-fanfare way that had always been my mode, and the career responded to that. Meanwhile, the family developed a habit. Started small. Mom's car needed a repair she couldn't cover. Could I help? Just this once. I helped. Then Dad had a medical bill that was a little more than expected. Then Amber's rent. She had moved to a nicer apartment than she could quite afford, and things were tight. Then the kids came along, Amber's 2 children, and suddenly there was school and childcare and all the expense that comes with a family that is living slightly beyond what it earns. You are so good with money. You have always been the responsible one. You know how to handle these things. These were the phrases that accompanied every request, and they were designed to do a specific job, to make saying yes feel like a confirmation of my identity and saying no feel like a betrayal of it. I understood this mechanism even as I kept responding to it, because understanding a trap and being able to get out of it are different skills. By the time this story begins, I was sending $5,000 a month to my family. Not a single payment, a constellation of them. My parents' mortgage top-up. Amber's car payment. School fees for Amber's kids. A general family expenses contribution that covered whatever came up that month. $5,000 every month, reliable as a utility bill. In return, I received the role I had always held. The responsible one, the capable one, the one who handled things. No particular gratitude. No particular acknowledgement. Just the expectation, arriving at the start of every month, that I would do what I always did. What my family did not know is that the $5,000, by this point, was roughly what I spent on a nice dinner out. Several years before this story reaches its main events, my career took a turn. I had been building something on the side, a business started carefully, grown methodically, the way I approached everything. It took 3 years to become real and another 2 to become significant. By the time I was 30, it was the main thing. By the time I was 32, it had crossed into territory that I am still slightly careful about describing out loud. Not from false modesty, but because the number changes how people look at you, and I was not yet sure I wanted that. Millionaire is the word. Comfortably, sustainably, not going anywhere millionaire. I made a decision almost immediately. My family would not know. I had watched what happened to money in my family. I had watched Amber receive a college education and a car and years of financial support and emerge from it needing more, not less, because the support had never been designed to build independence, it had been designed to build dependence. I had watched my parents fund her life for decades without once stopping to ask whether the funding was helping or whether the person receiving it was growing or simply expanding to fill whatever was offered. I had no interest in becoming a larger ATM. The $5,000 a month I was already sending was more than enough of my money to be funneling into a system that had never once directed any of it toward me. So I kept living simply. Normal apartment, modest car, unremarkable clothes. I kept sending $5,000 a month. I kept being the responsible one. And I kept building, quietly, the life that nobody in my family knew I was building. I had colleagues who knew. I had friends who knew. I had a lawyer and an accountant who knew, obviously. But within the family system, the system that had assigned me my role before I could object to it, I was still the one who handled things, still the one who was good with money, still the one whose $5,000 a month was quietly holding up a structure that would have looked very different without it. I want to be honest about why I kept sending the money even after I no longer needed to. It was not guilt exactly. It was something more complicated, a kind of residual love for the family I wished I had, expressed through the family I actually had, in the only currency they had ever acknowledged from me. I was not naive about this. I knew what it was. I did it anyway because I could, and because the alternative, cutting it off entirely, walking away, required a coldness I did not have. Not yet. Amber has 2 children, ages 6 and 8 at the time of this story. The family had developed a habit of volunteering me as childcare. Not asking, volunteering. Plans would be made, the weekend would be arranged, and at some point I would be informed that I was watching the kids. It was presented as family obligation rather than a request, which meant it was difficult to decline without being framed as the one who was letting everyone down. I had done it more times than I could count. Full weekends, sometimes longer, always with short notice, always with the implicit understanding that this was just what the responsible one did when the family needed her. This particular weekend, I could not do it. I had a business meeting that had been in the calendar for 3 months, a significant meeting with significant people involving a significant amount of money. The kind of meeting you do not reschedule. I said no. I said it clearly, with warmth, with an explanation of why. I offered to help find alternative childcare. I said I was sorry for the inconvenience. I want to be clear about the tone I used, because tone matters in what follows. I was not sharp. I was not dismissive. I explained a genuine conflict and offered a genuine alternative. What I did not do was cave, because caving was not actually an option that week. The reaction from my family was instructive. My mother called to tell me she was disappointed. My father called to tell me I was being selfish. Amber sent a message, not a call, a message that said I had always thought I was better than everyone else, and this proved it. There were references to everything they had done for me over the years, to the fact that family means showing up, to the implication that my refusal to rearrange my life around Amber's weekend plans was a character failing. I responded to each of them once, calmly, restating my position. Then I stopped responding, because there was nothing left to say. The family went quiet. Not the natural quiet of people who are busy, the strategic quiet of people who are applying silence as a pressure tactic, who have learned that going cold produces a specific anxiety in the person on the receiving end and have used it successfully before. They waited for me to break, to call, to apologize, to do what I had always done when the silence came, which was absorb it until the guilt became uncomfortable enough that reconciliation felt like relief. I did not call. I did not apologize. I watched the silence and I thought about it carefully, and after about a week I made a decision. I stopped the payments. No announcement, no explanation, no dramatic statement. I simply did not send the money that month. I waited to see how long it would take for someone to notice and what they would say when they did. Took 3 weeks. The call came from my mother, and it was not an apology. It was an inquiry. The money had not arrived. Was everything okay? Was there a problem with the transfer? The question was dressed in concern, but the concern was for the payment, not for me, and we both understood that. I told her I had been hurt by how the babysitting situation was handled, and that I needed to think about what I was able to contribute going forward. I said I wanted to keep helping the family, but that I needed the dynamic to be different. I said I could do $4,000 a month, not 4, and that I needed us to agree that this was the arrangement and that it would not be subject to ongoing renegotiation upward. My mother pushed back. The mortgage, the school fees, $5,000 was what the family needed. I held the $4,000 without moving. There was a long silence. Then she said fine. I said good. And then I added one thing, stated clearly so there was no ambiguity about it. They could not ask for more than this. They had agreed to $4,000 and that was the number. Any attempt to revisit it upward would result in it going down. My mother said she understood. I noted privately that she had not said she agreed. About 6 weeks after the new arrangement began, my family had a dinner. Extended family present, my Aunt Sophie, Uncle Richard, several cousins, the kind of gathering that happens a few times a year where multiple generations sit around a table and catch up. I arrived on time. I brought wine. I was, as I always was at these things, pleasant and present and unremarkable. About 40 minutes into dinner, my mother made a comment. I am not going to repeat it exactly because the specific words matter less than what they communicated, which was this. Amber had always been the warm one, the funny one, the one people wanted to be around, while the implication about me was left in the space where the second half of the sentence should have been. It was the kind of comment this family had been making for years, at tables exactly like this one, and for years I had absorbed it the way I absorbed everything, quietly, completely, and without visible reaction. The table went quiet in the way tables go quiet when something lands wrong and nobody is sure what to do about it. Aunt Sophie looked at her plate. The cousins found somewhere else to direct their attention. My father continued eating. Amber looked mildly pleased. I smiled, genuinely, warmly, as though I had just heard something that amused me. That's funny, I said. You know what else is funny? Next month the help goes down to $3,500. My mother's expression shifted. She started to say something about how I couldn't just, and I held up one hand, still pleasant, still completely calm. If someone is bankrolling your life, I said, the least you can do is show some basic respect. That seems fair to me. I looked around the table. Could someone pass the potatoes? Nobody moved for a moment. Then my cousin Marcus passed the potatoes. I served myself and continued eating. The dinner went on. 3 days later my phone rang. Aunt Sophie. She told me my mother was very hurt. She told me that the comment at dinner had come from a place of love and that I had embarrassed the family in front of everyone. She told me she understood I was going through something but that this wasn't the way. I listened to all of it. Then I asked one question. Aunt Sophie, if someone was giving you $5,000 a month, would you say something like that to them at a dinner table in front of the whole family? A pause. A long one. Probably not, she said. Exactly, I said, and I ended the call. Around this time I stopped hiding. I had been living modestly for years as a deliberate choice and the choice no longer felt necessary. I bought the house I had been looking at for 2 years, a real house, the kind I had earned, in a neighborhood I actually wanted to live in. I bought the car. I updated my wardrobe in the way that people update their wardrobes when they stop performing financial limitation for an audience. I started posting the kind of life on social media that reflects the life I was actually living. The family saw it. The cognitive dissonance was immediate and visible. Here was the woman who had said she could only manage $4,000 a month, buying houses. The comments started careful, indirect, the kind of probing that stops short of actually asking, because asking directly would require acknowledging what they had been treating me as. Then Amber posted a designer bag, an expensive one. She posted it on her social media with the kind of caption people use when they want people to know they have something nice. I took a screenshot. I posted it in the family group chat, the full family chat, aunts and uncles and cousins and everyone, and wrote, "Guess you didn't need as much help as we thought if you can afford this." And then I added, "Support is going down 500 this month." The chat went very quiet. Then it went not quiet at all. I let them talk. I did not respond. I put my phone down and went back to my evening. This became the system, and I want to explain it clearly so you understand what I was doing and why. Every disrespect, every comment, every joke, every passive-aggressive remark, every moment where the family communicated what they thought of me relative to Amber, cost $500. I did not announce this rule in advance. I applied it afterward, publicly, in the family chat where the extended family could see. I would post something simple. After what was said at Sunday dinner, support is going down 500 this month. And then I would put my phone down. The extended family started paying attention. My aunts and uncles and cousins were watching a dynamic they had always vaguely sensed but never seen being named in real time in a group chat. Some of them said nothing. Some of them started responding to my posts with a simple thumbs up, which told me something about how they had privately assessed the situation for years. A few of them sent me private messages, careful, diplomatic, not quite taking a side but making clear they saw what was happening and did not think it was right. My parents and Amber could not stop themselves. That was the thing I understood about them that made the system work. They had been behaving this way for so long that it was not a performance, it was a reflex. They could not simply decide to stop, because stopping would require acknowledging that the behavior was a problem, and acknowledging that it was a problem would require acknowledging that I was a person rather than a function. That was not a step they were built to take. So the comments kept coming. And every time one did, the number went down. 500 here, 500 there. A remark at a Sunday lunch. A joke on a phone call that I noted and did not respond to in the moment and addressed the next morning in the family chat, warmly, factually, with the payment update attached. By the time Thanksgiving arrived, the monthly support had reached $2,500. Down from $5,000. Cut in half by their own behavior, $500 at a time, all of it documented in a family chat that 43 people could read. I hosted Thanksgiving that year. I invited everyone, the whole extended family, all 43 of them, to my house. People arrived and saw the house for the first time, and the reaction was everything I had quietly hoped it would be, not because I needed the validation, but because I had spent years performing smallness for an audience that used it against me, and it was genuinely satisfying to stop performing. My cousins walked through the front door, and their faces did the thing faces do when a space is more than expected. Aunt Sophie put her hand over her mouth. Uncle Richard shook my hand and held it for a moment longer than usual and said he was proud of me in the simple way that older men say things when they mean them. I had cooked. Not catered, cooked the way I always cooked when I hosted, because food is one of the ways I express things I do not always say out loud. The table was full and warm and loud in the good way. People ate and talked and asked me questions about the business and the house and what I had been building, and I answered all of it openly for the first time, and the room responded with the genuine warmth of people who were happy for someone they loved. My cousin Daniela asked for a restaurant recommendation in a city I knew well. I gave her 4, with notes on each. My Uncle Richard mentioned that his youngest was looking to break into my industry and could use some guidance. I told him to have her call me Monday. I would introduce her to 3 people. My cousin Tomas said his wife had always wanted to go skiing somewhere nice, and it sounded like a dream. I told him I had a place in the mountains and they were welcome to use it any time. Just give me 2 weeks' notice and the dates were theirs. I helped everyone at that table. Recommendations, connections, the ski place, a referral for Aunt Sophie's contractor problem, a conversation with my cousin about her business idea that I knew I was going to follow up on with real resources. Everyone except my parents and Amber, who sat at the far end of the table and watched the room receive what they had given away, one $500 comment at a time. They were not cold to me. I was not cold to them. We were perfectly polite. But the contrast was visible to everyone, and I think everyone understood it, and nobody said anything about it because nobody needed to. We were on dessert when Amber snapped. It came out of nowhere and from everywhere at once. The accumulated pressure of the evening, the house, the room full of people celebrating someone she had spent her whole life being positioned above. She put down her fork and said that this was not right. That family helped family. That I had a duty to my parents and to her children. That I had resources and they needed help, and that was simply how it worked. Her voice was not quiet. My parents nodded. My father said she was right. My mother said it too. Family helps family. You owe us for everything we gave you over the years. The table went still. 43 people at a Thanksgiving dinner, and the room had the quality of a held breath. I picked up my wine glass. I took a sip. I set it down carefully. And then I started talking in the tone of someone doing a pleasant accounting exercise. You're absolutely right, I said. Let's settle up. I want to make sure I'm paying back everything you gave me. Let's start with college. How much did that cost you? For years, tuition, housing, what was the number? I paused as if genuinely trying to remember. Actually, wait. That was Amber. You paid for hers. You didn't pay for mine. I worked 2 jobs and took out loans. I actually paid you. So I'll write that one off. Nobody spoke. What else? The car, the one you gave to a teenager to drive to school. Amber got one at 16. I never had one. So we can write that off too. Moving on. I turned my glass slowly. Housing, you let Amber live at home for free until she was 23. I paid rent from the day I turned 18. In my own parents' house. So if anything, on housing, I think you actually owe me. I looked up from the glass and looked at my mother. Should I keep going, or have I made my point? Silence. Complete, total, 43-person silence. I thought so, I said pleasantly. Amber's voice, when it came back, was different, tight, stripped of the righteousness it had arrived with. This is financial exploitation, she said. What you're doing with the payments, reducing them, using money as a weapon, that is exploitation. I looked at her for a moment. You are welcome, I said. To get a job and pay your own bills. I said it without heat, without cruelty, just as a statement of available options. We all knew she wouldn't. They all knew she wouldn't. That was the whole point, and everyone in that room understood it. And the understanding landed in the silence like something being set down after being carried for a very long time. Oh, I added, reaching for the wine bottle. The support just went down again. I am not estranged from my family. I want to be clear about that because people always ask. I still talk to my parents. I see them at family events. I am civil and I am present and I am kind in the ways that I am capable of being kind, which are real ways, even if they do not include $5,000 a month anymore. The support sits at $2,000 now. It has not moved in several months, which means the comments have mostly stopped, which was always the point. Not to punish them permanently, to change the math. To make the behavior cost something visible and calculable, in a context where the whole family could see the calculation being made, until the behavior became more expensive than they were willing to pay for it. That is all the system ever was. Not revenge. Arithmetic. My mother calls differently now. There is a carefulness in it that was not there before, not warmth exactly, not the warmth I always wanted and never received, but a kind of attention that approximates respect even if it is not quite the same thing. She asks about the business. She asks about the house. She asks how I am in a tone that suggests she is actually interested in the answer rather than waiting for the call to be over. I have decided I can accept the approximation. It is more than I had before, and I am 34 years old, and I am done waiting for the version of my mother that was always going to arrive someday. Amber is more careful too. She has not posted another designer bag. She has not made another comment at a family dinner that the room noticed. Whether this represents a change in how she thinks about me or simply a change in what she is willing to say out loud in a situation where it costs her family $500, I genuinely do not know. I have decided it does not matter. The behavior is what I was addressing. The behavior has changed. The extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, treats me differently now, in the open way that people treat you differently when they have seen you be exactly who you are in a room full of people and it turned out to be more than they expected. Aunt Sophie calls me sometimes just to talk, which she never did before. My cousin Tomas and his wife used the ski place in February and sent me a photo from the mountain that I have kept. I have the house. I have the business. I have the life I built quietly over years while being treated as the responsible one and the useful one and the one who handled things. It turns out that handling things at the scale I was handling them produces a certain kind of life, if you are patient enough and private enough to build it properly. I was both of those things. I still am. Update: I posted this story a few months ago, and the response was more than I expected. A lot of you had questions, so let me answer the ones that came up most. Several people asked whether the payment reduction system was planned from the beginning or something I arrived at gradually. Honestly, gradually. The first reduction, after the family dinner comment about Amber being the warm one, was instinct more than strategy. Something in me finally refused to absorb it silently. The system came later when I realized that the instinct was actually a principle, and that applying it consistently and publicly was more effective than applying it once and letting them wait it out. A lot of people asked about my father, who appears less in this story than my mother and Amber. He was always the quieter one, more of a follower in the family dynamic than an architect of it. He went along with things. He nodded. He said Amber was right when Amber spoke. I do not have a lot of anger toward him specifically, which is its own kind of complicated. Passive participation in a dynamic is still participation. But I also recognize that he was shaped by the same family he shaped, and that untangling that is more than I need to do. Someone asked whether I ever felt guilty about the Thanksgiving dinner, about the accounting speech, about doing it in front of 43 people. I thought about this honestly. No. What I feel when I think about that dinner is something closer to relief. I had been carrying a very specific kind of quiet for a very long time. What happened at that table was the quiet ending. It was not kind exactly, but it was true, and true was what the situation required. The business is doing well. The house is exactly what I wanted. I went skiing in March and the mountain was perfect and I thought about nothing difficult for 4 days in a row, which is more than I could have said for any 4-day stretch in the years when I was sending $5,000 a month and performing smallness for people who had decided my role before I was old enough to audition for a different one. I am not the responsible one. I am not the ATM. I am not the useful one or the capable one or the one who handles things. I am Rachel. I am 34 years old. I have a very nice house. And for the first time in my adult life, the people in my family know exactly who they are dealing with. If this one stayed with you, and I think it did, you know what to do. Subscribe to the Story Zone. Drop a like, and tell me in the comments. What was your moment in this story? Was it the potato line? Calm? Warm? Devastating? Was it the Aunt Sophie phone call and the one question she couldn't answer? Was it the Amber bag post in the family chat? Was it the Thanksgiving table where Rachel helped everyone except them? Was it the accounting speech, college, car, rent, one by one, written off, written off, written off? Or was it just the last line? The one where Amber said this is financial exploitation and Rachel said you are welcome to get a job and pay your own bills, and everyone in that room knew exactly how that sentence was going to end. Drop it below. We see every comment. We will see you in the next one.